Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really unique set of sources. We've got a transcript from an esoteric investigation, like a hypnosis or maybe a remote viewing session.
Right, that kind of thing.
And we're pairing that with a really rigorous, almost, shocking critique of that very same research method.
Yeah, the source itself kind of warns you about itself.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty specific. We want to dive into these claims about cremation, its impact on the non-physical self, what the sources call the energetic body, and how that might affect, say, reincarnation cycles down the line. But, and this is crucial, we really have to look hard at how credible this data is. Because like you said, the material comes with a huge warning label attached.
Very necessary warning label.
Okay, so let's try to unpack this. We're definitely moving beyond just the physical act of cremation here.
Oh, absolutely.
These sources, they treat it not just as, disposal, but almost like an alchemical process, using fire to transform something, the essence or the soul.
That's really the core of it. We're looking at the journey of consciousness, this energetic body, right after physical death.
And how fire plays into that.
Exactly. How does that elemental force, fire, intervene? How does it influence detachment from the body, the karmic path, maybe even how future lives are structured? It's a really high concept take on something most people see as pretty straightforward.
Okay, but let's start with the basics first, according to the transcript anyway. Why did cremation even start? What was the practical reason?
Well, historically, the investigation suggests it was actually super practical. Hygiene. It's a quick way to deal with, bacteria, disease, the things that happen after the body starts decomposing. Avoids all that.
Makes sense.
And psychologically, for the people left behind, the survivors, fire does something powerful. It marks a very clear end, as the source puts it. The carbonic existence is over. It helps the living accept it.
So physically clean, mentally decisive, got it. But the energetic side, according to this material, that seems way more complex. It sounds like timing is everything.
It's absolutely critical. The sources make a really key distinction here between different types of burning.
Okay.
So first, there's involuntary or violent cremation. Think death by accident, a fire, an explosion.
Right.
This is described as a violent act. The energetic body, that immediate non-physical vehicle for consciousness, it gets forced out way too quickly.
And why is being fast a problem for this energetic body?
Well, because the consciousness itself doesn't get time. No time to process the death, no time to transition properly. This super rapid forced expulsion, it can cause serious energetic trauma. The source calls it fissures in the essence.
Fissures, like cracks.
Yeah, think of it like spiritual tears or cracks in the very fabric of the essence. It happens when the energetic shift is just too abrupt for the mind to keep up.
Wow. Okay. That sounds incredibly jarring.
Yeah.
Like being ripped out of something protective.
That's a good way to put it. Now, organized cremation is different if a certain time is respected, meaning if you give the energetic body enough time to naturally start its exit process, then burning the physical body is just speeding up what would happen anyway.
Okay.
It's a transformation. It's not a violation. According to this, it leaves no energetic traces, just quickly reduces the dense carbon stuff.
Right. Okay, this brings us to a kind of tricky area then. What happens if the cremation starts before the essence or the energetic body has fully detached? Maybe after a really long illness, where the source says the energetic body was already having trouble being in the physical one.
Yeah, that creates a really problematic situation. The essence is described as feeling stuck or sticky, almost like it's glued to the physical body out of habit or belief or just attachment. It can't quite get free at the moment of death.
So it's caught.
Exactly. It gets trapped in this intermediate state, not fully out, but not fully in either, kind of hanging in limbo.
And then the fire starts.
And then the fire introduces this huge, powerful external energy. We shouldn't just think of fire as heat here, but like a dynamic force field.
Can you give us an analogy for how that energy interacts with the stuck essence? Like, what does it do?
Okay, imagine a small boat trying to leave a crowded harbor, but the tide is really weak. It's hard to maneuver, right? Stuck.
Yeah.
Now imagine a massive, sudden ocean current sweeps in. That force field from the fire acts like that current. It starts pushing the energetic body toward a certain direction.
Pushing it where?
Well, the problem is it overrides the essence's own will. It minimalizes its free will, the source says, and essentially shoves it in a corner. It prevents it from making its own natural autonomous progress.
That really clarifies the sort of energetic physics of it. But I'm still wondering, why would a long illness make it harder to detach? You'd think the body failing would make the essence want to leave more?
Logically, yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
But what the sources seem to suggest is that a really severe long-term illness creates this huge mental inertia.
Inertia.
Yeah, like the consciousness gets so hyper-focused on the physical sensations, the pain, the struggle just to live, that it actually strengthens the identification. I am this body. Ah, okay, so the focus keeps it locked in.
Right. And that makes the final separation, when it comes, much more traumatic than if it were, say, a sudden clean break.
Okay, let's shift a bit then. We've talked about timing, but what about the context? Like ritual. Is there a difference between just a purely mechanical cremation stick the body in a furnace versus one that's part of a sacred or religious tradition?
The intention, the framework, it changes things dramatically,
Yes.
especially around fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a purely mechanical cremation, the source says fear pops up almost immediately from the etheric body.
The etheric body. That's the layer closest to the physical, right? The blueprint.
Exactly. That layer registers the raw energy of the fire, the uncertainty of it all, and that ramps up the anxiety about the spiritual journey ahead.
So the mechanism itself isn't the interference, but the fear it creates. That's the problem.
Precisely. That initial raw existential fear then makes the essence vulnerable. It opens it up to future interference later on, creates a weak spot, you could say.
Okay, so what about the other side? Religious cremation. Well, in a religious or sacred cremation, that fear is contained. It's managed, structured by the person's own beliefs, the rituals they expect.
So they feel safer.
They feel safer, they find security because they think they know the path, but, and this is a big but, that safety comes at a price.
Which is?
Those deep beliefs, they determine its path, and they convey a series of contracts for the next incarnation.
Whoa, hang on. Contracts. What kind of spiritual contracts are we talking about? Are these like bad deals?
Not necessarily bad, like punishment, but definitely restrictive. They tend to lock the essence into predetermined paths or roles or duties in the next life.
Dictated by the religion.
Dictated by the religious system it belonged to, yeah. The essence basically loses some free will because its next steps are governed by the rules and expectations of that specific belief system.
Wow. That's a massive potential consequence. It really sounds like the biggest factor in all this isn't the fire itself, but the person's state of consciousness right at the end. Their ability to let go.
It really is all a matter of consciousness, as the source puts it. Can the person detach from their body, their habits, their life? Can they let go of that core belief that life is the physical body? That seems to dictate the outcome.
And if they go into the fire with clarity.
The transformation is smooth, no problem.
But if they can't detach.
Yeah.
And they get those energetic fissures you mentioned.
Then that trauma sticks around. And later, maybe in a future life, if that person faces some other big trauma or psychological crisis, those old fissures could actually cause fragments of their essence to break off.
Fragment, like parts of the soul.
That's the implication. And the consequence, according to this investigation, is that this fragmentation makes the person accessible for possessions, or at least manipulation by outside entities.
Okay, so it's like domino effect. Lack of detachment, trauma during cremation, energetic scars, future vulnerability.
That's a pretty good summary. Interestingly, the source also suggests that the choice to be cremated often reflects a kind of pre-existing clarity in the person.
How so?
Like a subconscious understanding that they aren't just their physical body. And that very clarity gives them a certain freedom on their path forward without contracts. It's the lack of detachment, regardless of how the body is handled, that brings in the fear. And fear is what allows the karmic path to be manipulated.
Right. Okay, shifting gears slightly, what about the collective energy around fire itself? Does fire just feel a certain way to us unconsciously?
Oh, definitely. The collective consciousness has really strong associations with fire, doesn't it? Powerful rituals, tribal stuff, sacrifice, deep ancestral memories. So choosing cremation, even unconsciously, can sometimes tap into those deep, maybe even unsettling ritualistic energies. It evokes things like, well, the sources mention Archontica's energies.
Which are?
Linked in this lore to ancient blood sacrifice and sort of controlling non-human forces.
So the collective history, the crowd energy, that's also in the mix. How is fire itself described elementally?
It's described as free, chaotic, savage, expansive, transformative, and crucially, reducing everything to carbon.
Reducing everything to carbon.
Yeah, the key is it's non-judgmental. Fire just transforms. It burns. It reduces everything back to that basic carbon density, wiping out other possibilities for, say, physical continuity. It's purely reductionist in that sense.
Okay. Now let's get to probably the most charged claim in these sources. Active interference. specifically by these highly evolved negative entities, often mentioned in esoteric circles like reptiloids or draconians.
Right, the interferers.
If the person dying is already, let's say, under their influence or connected to them somehow, what does cremation mean in that context?
Well, the sources claim that if the deceased is already interfered with, these entities are basically ready and waiting. Prepared. They can actively manipulate the person's perception right after death. They amplify the fear caused by the fire for maximum effect. They apparently read the mental body, know exactly when the essence will react to the heat.
And what's their goal?
It's disturbingly practical. Either they try to lock in favorable contracts right then and there as the essence is exiting in panic.
Capitalizing on the fear.
Exactly. Or, and this is more critical, they use the fire's action itself. Remember that pushing force we talked about?
Yeah, shoving the essence into a corner.
The interferers can weaponize that. They use the fire's cornering effect to actively capture the essence or suck out the essence or even encapsulate it completely for their own purposes.
So, if the fire acts like a catalyst, the interferers can use it like a net.
That's a perfect analogy, yes.
Okay. Wow. We have covered some incredibly specific, really complex claims here. Energetic physics, consciousness states, cosmic contracts. But now we absolutely have to hit the brakes. This is the critical point of our deep dive. We need to talk about the source's own really severe warnings about how this information was obtained.
This really is the most important question for you, the listener, to grapple with. How reliable can any of this information be coming from just one single hypnosis session?
Especially when the source material itself states, point blank, and it is startling. Research sessions do not exist.
Yeah, it just pulls the rug right out.
It fundamentally undermines the whole thing. They're openly admitting that information from one deep hypnosis session, even if done perfectly, is inherently polluted, contaminated. So, why even share the claims about fissures and reptilians catching souls? Doesn't it just cancel itself out?
It sounds totally contradictory, I know. But this is why they developed their strict protocol of investigation. They argue that while, yeah, single sessions are basically worthless for establishing fact, they're also the only window we have into these realms.
So the data isn't presented as fact, but more like a hypothesis.
Exactly. A hypothesis that needs massive, massive statistical backup to mean anything.
Okay. And they list specific reasons why it's so contaminated. Right?
Yes. A detailed list of contamination factors. We really need to go through these so you understand the risks.
All right, walk us through them.
Okay, first, just basic physics, apparently. Information has to travel through multiple dimensions and densities to even reach the hypnotist. Every jump introduces distortion. Static on the line, basically.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, it passes through countless other minds and consciousnesses out there. It can get passively trapped or warped by lower-level entities just sort of floating through the data stream.
So noise and interference are guaranteed just from the transmission.
Guaranteed, but then it gets worse. Third, intelligent entities, the high-level interferers we talked about, they can actively distort the information, deliberately or sometimes involuntarily, as like a defense mechanism if the questions get too close to their operations.
Okay, active disinformation.
Fourth, the human factor. The person in hypnosis pollutes the data with their own stuff. Their beliefs, their unique viewpoint, their mental structure, it all gets filtered through their personal lens.
Right, their own biases.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of contacting the actual subject, like the deceased person's essence.
What about that?
That's the fifth and maybe the scariest factor. If the person under hypnosis connects to a subject, say your deceased relative, that subject might not authorize the information release. They have free will too.
And if they don't authorize?
Well, then other, often malicious entities can step in and pose as the subject. They just invent comforting lies or misleading stuff or total garbage to manipulate the living person or the investigator.
Good grief. That's like systemic fraud baked into the whole process.
Yeah.
So, given all that 5 huge contamination risks, how does any real investigation even happen in this field?
This is where the idea of gold nuggets comes in. Real investigation, according to this protocol, needs absolute rigor. You have to run hundreds, maybe thousands of sessions using the exact same questions, focusing very narrowly.
The same question over and over.
To different people, different languages, different times, yes. strict repetition. And only the information that shows up consistently, common to all or almost all these sessions, that is considered reliable. That shared data is the gold nugget. It's a tiny percentage of the total noise.
Ah, okay. So that's why you hear consistent claims about, say, general reptilian interference that might be gold nugget because it comes up thousands of times. But a specific claim about, I don't know, the energetic state of my great aunt Mildred from one session, that's basically worthless.
Utterly worthless from a research standpoint. The protocol demands statistical consistency, even when you're talking about spirits. Reliability comes from repetition across a huge sample, not the psychic power of one person.
Okay, that provides absolutely essential critical context for everything we've discussed. We've explored the energetic hygiene side of cremation, the dangers of burning too fast or without consciousness, the potential for karmic impacts, entity interference.
But the ultimate takeaway, really, if you accept the premises of these sources, is that your state of consciousness before you die. That's the whole game.
Our ability to detach.
Your ability to detach from the earthly stuff, your body, your life, your habits, that seems to be exponentially more important than how the physical body is actually disposed of. Cremation is just a catalyst, a powerful one, accelerating whatever process was already underway based on your consciousness.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been absolutely fascinating, definitely complex, and clearly requires a very critical lens on the sources themselves.
And here's maybe a final thought to leave you with, based on an example in the sources. If the consciousness of someone dying, maybe like those yogis preparing, by consciously shedding their attachments, if they can achieve such intense focus that they claim they can observe, even influence, subatomic particles in their own bodies in those final moments, what does that truly imply about the untapped power of our directed attention, especially during that ultimate transition of death?